The desert winds blew gently over the land of Canaan, brushing against olive trees and whispering through the modest tents of the household of Jacob, the beloved prophet and father of 12 sons. Among them was a boy, gentle in manner, soft in speech, and radiant in his character. His name was Yusuf. Yusuf was not just any child. His presence had a kind of calm. His eyes sparkled with purity, and his heart carried a kind of softness rarely seen, even among prophets' children. His father, Prophet Yaqub, loved all his sons, but with Yusuf, the bond felt different. It wasn't favoritism. It was the deep love of a father who saw divine light in a child touched by future greatness. One early morning, as dawn gently lifted the sky, young Yusuf approached his father with eyes full of wonder. He was about 10, maybe 11, when he quietly said, "Oh, my father, indeed I have seen in a dream 11 stars, the sun and the moon. I saw them prostrating to me." Yaqub's heart trembled. Not of fear, but awe. He knew what dreams could mean. He was a prophet, and this dream, this was no ordinary vision. He drew Yusuf close, placed a hand on his head, and whispered with concern and love, "My dear son, do not relate your dream to your brothers, or they will plot against you. Surely, Satan is a clear enemy to man." Yusuf nodded slowly, his heart still stirring from the powerful dream. He didn't fully understand it, but his father's eyes told him everything. This dream was sacred, and this journey, it was just beginning. While Yusuf was gentle and trusting, his brothers were older, stronger, and carried a heaviness in their hearts. They saw how Yaqub loved Yusuf, how he smiled when Yusuf spoke, how his hands rested on Yusuf's head in prayer, how he looked for Yusuf before the others. Their hearts began to darken, not from evil, but from unchecked envy. One of the brothers said, "Surely Yusuf and his brother are more beloved to our father than we are, although we are a strong group. Our father is clearly in error." And in the shadows of their hearts, a whisper grew louder, a whisper from Satan himself. "Kill Yusuf," one of them said, "or cast him away to a distant land. Then our father's love will return to us." But not all of them agreed. One of the brothers, still holding a sliver of mercy, said, "Do not kill him. Instead, throw him into the bottom of a well. Some travelers may pick him up, if you must do something." It was a plan rooted in pain, disguised as logic. They believed they were fixing their family, but in truth, they were tearing it apart. They went to Yaqub, pretending joy. "Oh, our father," they said, "why do you not entrust Yusuf to us, while we are strong and caring? Send him with us tomorrow, so he may play and enjoy himself. We will guard him well." Yaqub looked at them, sensing something behind their words. A father knows. A prophet knows even more. But even he, though deeply wise, was a man, and love sometimes demands trust, even when the heart hesitates. He said, "Indeed, it saddens me that you take him, and I fear that a wolf may eat him while you are unaware." They quickly replied, "If a wolf eats him while we are so many, then surely we would be worthless." And so, with a heavy heart and whispered prayer, Yaqub let go of the hand of his beloved son. The brothers led Yusuf far from home. The sun burned above them. The dust clung to their clothes, but their hearts were colder than the desert sand. When they reached a remote place, they surrounded the young boy, still unaware of what was coming. Without mercy, they grabbed him, tore the shirt from his back, and threw him into the depths of a dry well. The darkness swallowed him whole. Yusuf screamed. He cried. He begged. But the only reply was the sound of his brother's footsteps growing fainter and fainter, until silence claimed everything. He was alone, cold, hungry, terrified, and yet, even in that pit, far from his father's embrace, surrounded by insects, damp stones, and pitch-black night, he turned to Allah Almighty. He cried, not just from pain, but from faith. Somewhere in the silence, Yusuf whispered, "Allah Almighty, you are the only one who can hear me." And Allah Almighty did hear. As night fell, the brothers returned to their father, forcing tears into their eyes. "Oh, our father," they cried. "We went racing and left Yusuf with our belongings, and a wolf came and ate him. But you will not believe us, even if we were truthful." They handed him Yusuf's shirt, stained with false blood. Yaqub took the shirt, but even in his sorrow, he saw what they could not hide. The shirt was not torn. No animal had touched it. He knew. Yet what could he do? His heart shattered, but his faith did not. "Rather, your souls have enticed you to something," he said softly. So patience is most fitting, and Allah Almighty is the one sought for help against what you describe. He turned away and wept, not just for the loss of his son, but for the silence of betrayal. Days passed in that dark well. Yusuf grew weak, but not hopeless. He remembered his father's voice. He remembered his dream. He held tightly to the only thing he had left, faith. And then, footsteps. A caravan, traveling from the east, paused by the well. A water drawer lowered his bucket and gasped in surprise when it rose heavy. "There's a boy," he shouted. "Glad tidings." The travelers pulled Yusuf from the well. His face was pale, his clothes torn, but his dignity untouched. They saw value in him, but not the kind he carried in his heart. To them, he was just a slave to be sold. They took him to Egypt and sold him in the marketplace for a few silver coins, a price that could never match his worth. But Allah Almighty had a plan. Yusuf was purchased by a high-ranking man in Egypt, Al-Aziz, a noble and wealthy official. He turned to his wife and said, "Make his stay comfortable. Perhaps he will benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son." Yusuf entered the home not as a child, not yet as a prophet, but as a stranger. Alone, with no one who truly knew his name. Yet through all the change, through every loss, he carried patience like a treasure inside him. He didn't know what tomorrow held, but he knew who held tomorrow. The city of Egypt stood in stark contrast to the simplicity of Canaan. Towering pillars lined the streets, and colorful fabrics danced in the marketplace breeze. Yet beneath the grandeur, Yusuf walked alone, no longer the cherished son of a prophet, but a stranger in a strange land, a slave bought for a handful of silver. He entered the house of Al-Aziz, the chief minister of Egypt, as a servant, quiet, observant, and dignified. His heart, though battered by betrayal, remained pure. There was no bitterness in him, only patience stitched with faith. He remembered his father's last embrace, the dream of the stars, the sun, and the moon. And above all, he remembered Allah Almighty. Al-Aziz was not a harsh man. He noticed Yusuf's character almost immediately. How he worked with care, how he spoke with respect, how he carried himself with nobility that didn't match the label of slave. One day, Al-Aziz turned to his wife and said, "Make his stay honorable. Perhaps he will benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son." And so, Yusuf was given a place not in the stables, but within the walls of their home, not as a servant among many, but as someone special, though still far from free. As years passed, Yusuf grew from a boy into a man, and what a man he became. His face held the glow of purity, his eyes the depth of wisdom. Every movement reflected grace, every word fell gently. He was, by the will of Allah Almighty, beautiful, not just in form, but in soul. But beauty can be both a gift and a test. The wife of Al-Aziz, known for her own elegance and influence, found herself drawn to Yusuf. What began as admiration turned into temptation. She watched him with restless desire. Not because of Yusuf himself, but because her heart was hollow, and he represented something noble, something untainted. One day, when the house was quiet and the doors locked, she approached him, not as a master, but as a woman overcome. She whispered, "Come to me." Yusuf's heart trembled, not from temptation, but from fear of disobeying Allah Almighty. He was young, he was alone, and he was a slave, yet none of those were excuses for sin. He stepped back, eyes wide with clarity, and said, "I seek refuge in Allah Almighty. Indeed, He is my master who has made my stay good. Indeed, the wrongdoers will never succeed." She advanced. He fled. He ran toward the door, heart pounding, but she grabbed his shirt from behind, tearing it as he escaped. At that moment, the door opened. Her husband, Al-Aziz, stood there, confused and stunned. To protect herself, the woman cried out, "What is the punishment for one who intended evil for your wife? Except that he be imprisoned or punished severely." But Yusuf stood firm. He didn't tremble. He didn't lower his gaze in shame. "It was she who sought to seduce me." A witness from her household spoke, calming the situation with wisdom. "If his shirt is torn from the front, then she is truthful, and he is lying. But if it is torn from the back, then she is lying, and he is truthful." The shirt torn from the back. The truth was clear. Al-Aziz, humiliated but wanting peace, said to his wife, "Seek forgiveness for your sin. Indeed, you were the wrongdoers." To Yusuf, he said nothing, but in his silence was a deep message. "You were right, but you are still not free." News of the incident spread quickly among the women of Egypt. In their elegant gatherings, behind silk veils and perfumed laughter, they whispered, "The wife of Al-Aziz tried to seduce her slave. Can you believe it? She has fallen in love with him." When she heard their gossip, she did not hide in shame. Instead, she invited them to her home. She prepared a grand meal and handed each of them a knife, placing fruit in their hands. Then, she summoned Yusuf. As he walked in, unaware, the women gasped. Their hands trembled, and in shock, many cut their fingers. "Perfect is Allah Almighty," they exclaimed. "This is not a man. This is a noble angel." The wife of Al-Aziz turned to them and said, "This is the one for whom you blamed me. I did try to seduce him, but he refused. Now, if he does not do what I command, he shall surely be imprisoned and humiliated." It was no longer just a private matter. It had become a royal scandal, and Yusuf was caught in the middle of it, not by fault but by fate. Yusuf turned away, not from fear but from faith. His heart was breaking, not just from the pressure, but from the painful reality. In a world ruled by status and power, truth was not enough to set him free. So he raised his hands to the heavens and said, "My Lord, prison is more beloved to me than what they invite me to. And if you do not turn their plot away from me, I might incline toward them and be among the ignorant." And so, by the will of Allah Almighty, Yusuf was taken away, not into shame, but into seclusion. He entered prison with his head high and his conscience clear. He had lost his freedom, once again, but he had not lost his dignity, and he had not lost his Lord. The prison was dark, and its walls unforgiving. Yet Yusuf brought with him a light. He greeted his cellmates with peace. He spoke kindly to the guards. He carried himself not as a prisoner, but as a man who belonged to the heavens. Even behind bars, Yusuf's soul was free. He slept peacefully. He worked patiently. And when others wept, he listened. He spoke little, but when he did, his words touched hearts. He had been tested with jealousy, slavery, seduction, and injustice. And yet, there was no hatred in his heart, only faith. The prison walls were thick with silence. Yet inside Yusuf's cell, something sacred grew. Though the world had turned its back on him, Allah Almighty had not. What others called misfortune, Yusuf saw as a divine plan unfolding, slowly, gently, perfectly. Time passed, days turning into months, months into years. Yusuf remained calm. He had no palace, no wealth, no freedom. But he had something no one could take from him: unshakable faith. One morning, two young men, both fellow inmates, approached Yusuf. Their faces looked tired, their eyes uneasy. One of them said, "Indeed, we see you as one who is righteous. We have both seen dreams. Tell us their meaning." The first said, "I dreamt that I was pressing wine." The second said, "And I dreamt that I was carrying bread on my head, and birds were eating from it. Tell us the meaning, for surely you are among the good doers." Yusuf didn't answer immediately. He saw in their eyes a search for hope, but he also saw something deeper, a thirst for truth. So before interpreting their dreams, he did what prophets always do. He taught. He gently said, "No food will come to you except that I can inform you of its interpretation before it arrives. That is part of what my Lord has taught me. I have left the way of a people who do not believe in Allah Almighty. I follow the religion of my fathers, Ibrahim, Ishaq, and Yaqub. It is not for us to associate anything with Allah Almighty. He continued with kindness and wisdom. He reminded them that idols hold no power. He taught them about the oneness of Allah Almighty, about judgment, about truth. He did not preach down to them. He spoke to their hearts. Only after delivering the message did he say, "As for one of you, he will serve wine for his master. As for the other, he will be crucified, and birds will eat from his head." This is the matter decided. The young men were stunned, and as they were taken away, one toward life and the other toward death, Yusuf quietly turned to the one who would live and said, "Mention me to your master." He didn't beg. He didn't demand justice. He simply asked to be remembered. But humans forget. The man returned to the palace, restored to comfort, to safety, to wine and gold. Days passed, then weeks, then years, and Yusuf remained in prison, forgotten not just by the man, but by the very system that allowed injustice to flourish. Yet not once did Yusuf lose hope. He didn't ask, "Why me?" He whispered instead, "Ya Allah Almighty, guide me." Because he knew, with every breath, with every heartbeat, that this pain had a purpose. One night, the king of Egypt saw a dream that shook him from his sleep. "I saw 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean ones, and 7 green ears of grain and others dry. Tell me, O people of wisdom, what does this mean?" His advisors, magicians, and priests tried, but all failed. "This is just a mix of dreams," they said, "meaningless visions." But the man who had once been Yusuf's cellmate, the one who had forgotten him, suddenly remembered. "I will inform you of its interpretation. Send me to the prison." He rushed to Yusuf's cell, humbled and guilty. "Yusuf, O man of truth," he said, "tell us the meaning of the king's dream." Yusuf, despite years of betrayal and delay, did not hesitate. His heart still held no bitterness. "You will have 7 years of abundant harvest. After that, 7 years of hardship and famine. Then will come a year of mercy, where people will be given rain, and they will press again." The man rushed back to the king with the interpretation. Egypt stirred with awe, but Yusuf did not ask to be released. He wanted something more important, his honor restored. The king said, "Bring him to me." But Yusuf sent back a message. "Ask the king about the women who cut their hands. My lord knows of their plot." The king summoned the women. The wife of Al-Aziz stood before him now, not in silk or pride, but in shame. "Now the truth is clear," she said. "I tried to seduce him. He was truthful. And Yusuf?" He stood tall, not just free but vindicated. He said, "This is so Al-Aziz may know I did not betray him in his absence, and that Allah Almighty does not guide the plans of the treacherous. I do not claim to be free from sin. The soul is ever inclined to evil, except for those upon whom my Lord has mercy." Even in victory, he remained humble. The king sent for him again, this time not as a slave, not as a suspect, but as an advisor. "You shall be established in our land. You will be trusted." Yusuf replied, calmly and wisely, "Appoint me over the storehouses of the land. Indeed, I am knowledgeable and trustworthy." The years of trial had prepared him for leadership. And so Yusuf, once sold for silver, once trapped in a well, once forgotten in a prison, became the minister of Egypt. Yusuf acted quickly during the years of abundance. He oversaw the collection and preservation of grain. Every step was planned. Nothing was wasted. Every resource was guarded for the years ahead. When famine struck, it wasn't just Egypt that suffered. The drought reached far, even to Canaan, where his father Yaqub lived, still mourning, still whispering Yusuf's name in sujud, still believing his son was alive. Hunger drove Yusuf's brothers to Egypt. They stood before him, beards older now, backs a little bent, not recognizing the brother they once betrayed. But Yusuf recognized them immediately. And here came another test, a test not of pain, but of power. Would he take revenge, or would he rise above? He chose patience again. "You will not know me now," he thought, "but the truth will come. The reunion is near." Yusuf, now a trusted minister of Egypt, sat upon a position of power, but his heart remained as soft as it had been in the well. He wore the robes of leadership, yet still carried the humility of servitude. The land around him was suffering, and it was time to serve. Then, one day, the past walked into his court. 10 men stood in line, rough hands, dust on their clothes, eyes tired from travel. They bowed before him, asking to buy grain. They did not recognize Yusuf. Why would they? The brother they threw into a well could not be the minister of a nation. But Yusuf knew them. Every face was a painful memory, every voice a ghost from childhood. His heart skipped a beat, not with hatred, but with mercy. He treated them with honor, giving them grain and hospitality. Yet he asked one thing before they could return again. "Bring me your youngest brother if you come back. I cannot give you more unless you bring him." They agreed and returned home, unaware they had just met the very soul they once betrayed. Back in Canaan, their father Yaqub, still grieving over Yusuf, hesitated to let his youngest son, Benjamin, go. "Should I trust you with him as I did with Yusuf?" he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. But the famine left little choice. With promises and oaths, the brothers returned to Egypt, this time with Benjamin. When Yusuf saw his younger brother, his heart ached. This was the only one who had never betrayed him, the one who wept when he vanished. In secret, Yusuf revealed his identity to him and said, "I am your brother, so do not be sad over what they used to do." Yusuf then devised a plan. He placed a royal cup in Benjamin's bag and had the guards discover it before they left. According to the law of the land, one caught stealing would become a servant to the king. "The cup is missing," a guard shouted. "Whoever has it will be kept here as punishment," Yusuf declared. They searched the bags and found it in Benjamin's. The brothers begged for mercy. They offered themselves in exchange, but Yusuf refused. The one guilty would stay. In this quiet way, Yusuf kept his brother close, without exposing the truth, without punishing the others. Still patient, still kind, hopeless and heartbroken, the brothers returned to Yusuf, not knowing where else to go. "O Aziz," they pleaded, "hardship has touched us and our family. Take one of us instead. Truly, we see you among the good doers." And then, at last, came the moment Yusuf had been waiting for. Not revenge, reunion. He looked at them with tears in his eyes and said, "Do you remember what you did to Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant?" Their faces froze, breath caught in their throats. Are you Yusuf?" one whispered. "I am Yusuf," he said softly, "and this is my brother. Allah Almighty has truly favored us." They fell to their knees, ashamed, shocked, stunned. But Yusuf raised them with his words. "No blame will be upon you today. May Allah Almighty forgive you. He is the most merciful of the merciful." Yusuf gave them a shirt, the same shirt that once carried the scent of childhood, betrayal, and miracles. He said, "Take this shirt and place it on the face of our father. His vision will return." Back in Canaan, Yaqub sat blind, tears still falling after years of longing. But suddenly he stood up. He sniffed the wind. "I smell Yusuf," he said. His sons returned, not just with grain, but with repentance and with the news that his beloved son was alive. When the shirt touched Yaqub's face, his sight returned. He wept, not because he could see again, but because his hope had never been wrong. "Did I not tell you?" he said. "I know from Allah Almighty what you do not." The entire family, Yaqub, Yusuf's brothers, and all their loved ones, traveled to Egypt. Yusuf, standing at the gates of the palace, saw his father once more. The prophet who had raised him with love, who never gave up on him, who cried for him when the world forgot. He ran to him. He fell upon his father's shoulders and wept like a child, for all the lost years, for the pain, for the longing, for the loneliness. Then he raised his parents to the throne, not out of pride, but out of love and honor. And here, in the court of the king, the dream he saw as a boy, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing, came true. "Oh, my father," Yusuf said, "this is the explanation of my dream from long ago. My Lord has made it come true. Indeed, my Lord is most subtle in what he wills." Years had passed. Yusuf had tasted betrayal, slavery, seduction, false accusations, prison, and finally, power. Yet he remained humble, grateful, and God-conscious. He didn't build statues of himself. He didn't hold grudges. He didn't seek applause. Instead, he turned to Allah Almighty and made a heartfelt dua. My Lord, you have given me of kingdom and taught me the interpretation of dreams. Creator of the heavens and the earth, you are my protector in this world and the next. Let me die a Muslim and join me with the righteous. This wasn't a prayer of a man who wanted more. It was the prayer of a man content, one who had seen the wisdom of every trial, the mercy behind every delay. The story of Prophet Yusuf is not just about a boy who became a king. It is about patience in the face of injustice, dignity in the grip of desire, forgiveness in the heart of power, and faith in the darkness of despair. His life teaches us that no matter how deep the well, how long the prison, or how painful the betrayal, Allah Almighty never abandons His servants. He is always there, testing, teaching, refining, and finally, rewarding. Let's remember, when you're betrayed, remember Yusuf in the well. When you're falsely accused, remember Yusuf in the palace. When you're forgotten, remember Yusuf in prison. And when you're given power, remember Yusuf's mercy. Because the patience of Prophet Yusuf was not just waiting. It was waiting with trust, with dignity, and with love for Allah Almighty.